Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Daily update from the Ukrainian front. I have the regular articles, one coming from the Ukrainian side, the other one coming from the Russian side. Remember, they will both try to twist and turn the truth to fit their narratives. So let's start with the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainian side looks like this, and the Russian side looks like this. And each bullet here represents something. The yellow one is where the Russians down a UAV or an airplane or a helicopter. The blue dots here are attacks, shelling coming from the Ukrainian side. The red dots are Russians shelling the Ukraine side, and the black dots right here are where the actual infantry meets in Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Vuhledar and Lyman. These are the hot spots. So let's start with the Ukrainska Pravda. Armed forces of Ukraine repelled over 40 attacks of occupiers and destroyed their strong point. Their strong points. That means they have only one. All right, it seems like. Over the past day, the Ukrainian military has repelled more than 40 attacks and destroyed a storage point of Russians. This comes from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Details. Air Force of the Defense Forces of Ukraine carried out 9 strikes on areas of concentration of the occupiers during the day. In addition, a Russian Sukhoi 25 attacked aircraft was destroyed near Marinka. Units of rocket forces and artillery in turn destroyed the occupiers' storage point. During the day, more than 40 attacks of the occupiers were repelled in the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka fronts. Those are right here. Marinka, Avdiivka, Artemovsk, which is Bakhmut, and Lyman here somewhere. Alright, so this is where they repelled the Russians. During the day, the enemy launched 2 missiles and 14 airstrikes, carried out more than 10 shellings using MLRS at the positions of Ukrainian troops and the civilian infrastructure of populated areas. On the Volyn, Polisia, Sivershchinia and Slobozhashchinia fronts, the operational situation has not changed significantly. During the day, the Russian forces shelled the settlements of Leonivka, Remyakh in Chernihiv Oblast, Novovaslivka, Zarutsne of Sumy Oblast, as well as the settlements of Huriv, Kozakok, Vershnya, Pisarivka, and about 4 more in Kharkiv Oblast. So they referred to this area on the map, which is north. So they have Chernihiv, the Russians calling Chernigov, Sumy, and Kharkov by the Russian, Kharkiv by the Ukrainians. So they referred to this. I'm going to look to see what happened here. This is probably a Ukrainian shelling of a village or something. So Belgorod governor said that Ukrainian forces shelled the village. There were no casualties, a house under construction. Okay, so it's just the power supply was disrupted. Move to the Kupiansk front. The settlements of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Kharkiv Oblast and Novoselivske in Luhansk Oblast came under fire of the occupiers. They are talking about this area right here. Let's see what happened here. Forces of the Zapad group struck UAF units supported by artillery and aviation. Russian forces destroyed a UAF ammunition depot, and Russian forces destroyed the same thing. So this is what the Russians did here. Now let's go back to the Ukrainians. On the Lyman front, occupiers conducted unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Serebrinka forest in Luhansk Oblast and Verkhnyokomianske, Makivka, Nevske and other ones in Luhansk Oblast, Spirnie and Berestove in Donetsk Oblast have come under artillery shelling. So they were talking about exactly this area right here. So let's see what happened here. Forces of the Center Group struck UAF units in the course of active combat operations supported by aviation and artillery. 50 Ukraine Armed Forces soldiers were killed. 2 armored vehicles, a pickup truck, and 2 S-1 Avdiivka howitzer and a D-30 howitzer were also destroyed. So it seems like they're trying to pinch this one too here. Now this is Bakhmut, which the Russians call Artemovsk. Let's see, let's make it bigger right here, where I covered it in a previous video, and they said that the Russians reached the center of the town and they crossed the Bakhmutka river, which goes north to south, or on the west side right here and in the center town. Let's see what these guys are saying. Fierce battle for the city rage on. What's going to happen? These things are going to meet and then all this will be stopped. Let's go to the Ukrainians. On the Bakhmut front that I just covered, the occupiers continue to conduct offensive actions. Try to take full control of the city of Bakhmut. Hostilities are ongoing. During the day, the occupiers conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near Avdiivka and Ivanivske. Units of these are in the back. I think Ivanivske is right here somewhere. Yeah, that is right here, behind, right here. So, units of the defense forces repelled about 14 attacks in the specified area. And we have here all these little settlements here of Donetsk Oblast were damaged by the shelling of the Russian forces. So basically the Russians are shelling the out of that area. The Russians don't show anything. That's all they show in the area. Now they're going to move probably here in Avdiivka, Marinka and Vuhledar, which is Vuhledar. Let's see what the Ukrainians are saying. On the Avdiivka and Marinka fronts, the occupiers conducted unsuccessful offensives in the areas of Marinka, Pobieda. The fiercest battles in this area of the front are continuing for Marinka, where more than 10 attacks of the Russians were repelled. At the same time, and we got here Avdiivka, Vodiane, and Marinka and Pobieda of Donetsk Oblast came under fire. So let's see what the Russians are saying. In Avdiivka, fighting is taking place on the city outskirts. That's been like this for a month or so. Marinka, the same thing. Fighting is taking place in the western part of the city. Now that's changed. These are bombardments, shellings. Let's see what the Russians are down here. Russian air defenses shot down a Ukrainian drone. Russian air defense down a Ukrainian drone. And here, the same drones shot down 2 Ukrainian drones here. And the Russians, let's see what they did here. Forces of the Vostok Group struck UAF units supported by artillery and aviation. And in Vuhledar, forces of the Vostok Group struck UAF units supported by artillery and aviation. Now, the Ukrainians are going to move with their little piece of news in Zaporozhye. The Russians have nothing to say here. And here is in Kherson. So let's go to the Ukrainians, say what they say here in... During the day, the occupiers did not conduct offensive operations on the Shakhtarsk front. They attacked Vuhledar, Kermenchuk, blah, 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 Donetsk Oblast. That's the one that I already showed. And now we move on to the Zaporozhye, where the Russians did not show anything. And Kherson, which is right here. This is the Kherson front because the town of Kherson is right here on the Dnipro River, west bank. The Russians continue to build up defense lines and fortifications. They carried out shelling of civilian areas. Among them are Vremivka of Donetsk Oblast, and then some of in Zaporozhye Oblast, and then as well as the city of Kherson and Kherson Oblast. The General Staff also reports the Russian forces are restricting the movement of Ukrainian citizens, blah, 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 unimportant, because they all lie, and I'm not going to read that. The same here. At the same time, for the same reason, I'm going to threaten the parents. Okay, let's see what the Russians are saying with this. So the Ukrainians are shelling the Russian positions here. Let's see what the Russians did. Russian forces hit the command and observation post of the UAF's 126th Separate Territorial Defense Brigade. And let's see what the Ukrainians did in return. Ukrainian forces shelled civilian infrastructure. Okay. civilian infrastructure, allegedly, you know, a civilian, a village, shell village again, village, Jesus Christ, I don't believe anything. Okay, city using blah blah blah. So as I said, we have to make sure that we do not fall into these guys' game and yeah, they killed civilians. No, they killed civilians. They all kill civilians, unfortunately, and that's what happening. It's happening during wars. The first victims are not the civilians, but the truth, and then civilians, obviously, the most vulnerable. So this is the general overview of the front in Ukraine with details here and there. Remember, these guys are saying whatever they want to say, and they hide what they want to hide. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.